This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to
This is Nos Arietes. Thanks to Watson's Counter for sponsoring this episode. Located in Ballard, Watson's Counter is your neighborhood specialty coffee shop, brunch spot, and now coffee roaster. Sourcing exclusively high-scoring coffees, Watson's Counter has started their coffee roasting project to showcase amazing coffees grown around the world. Their first featured coffee is the beautifully complex washed Ethiopian Odola. Follow them on Instagram at Watson's Counter to keep up with all the upcoming releases, or check out their website at www.watsonscounter.com. Whether you want to stop by for your daily coffee to go or sit down for delicious Korean-inspired brunch, Watson's Counter has got you covered. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, sponsored by Full Pull Wines and Watson's Counter, as well as our Substack subscribers. I'm Jeremiah Shan. Joining me today is a very special guest, Brad Evans. You know so well, former Sounder, current podcaster, broadcaster, doing just about everything involved with the Sounders.
Court jester.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's it. What's up, man?
Yeah, how are you?
Oh, we're here at Starfire, so if you hear some banging in the background, it's just it's part of the pod.
Exactly.
It's a natural sound of what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. So the thing that got me interested in talking to you was just like I saw that you played in this tournament, the TST, and it ended up being a pretty great experience, it sounds like.
It was unbelievable. So it's the soccer tournament, right?
Right.
It started out as a TBT, the basketball tournament. And that tournament actually takes place over, I think, a couple weeks. And so they get a chance to take a breath. And I don't know how they do it and have everyone there for these weekends and everything. But their idea was like, hey, let's try a soccer tournament. So the first I had heard about it was, I think Clint had announced something back in November of last year, right?
It was a slow burn.
He teamed up with this production company and they did it the right way. But my expectation, I looked at the article and then I was like, oh, that's cool, they'll have fun, and never thought that I would get the opportunity to play in something. So fast forward to around late March, early April, I got a text from Nick Raimondo, and he was like, hey, have you heard about this 7v7 tournament? And I was like, no, because I had forgotten about it. And he was like, well, it's the 7v7 $1 million tournament. It's like, oh yeah, I saw the article, didn't read it. He was like, you want to play? And I was like, well, maybe. I haven't put on boots since I retired. I use them to coach, but I literally have not played or kicked a soccer ball in that capacity. And I was like, that'll be fun. He's like, oh, well, Mike McGee's putting together a team. And I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, that's all it took. Once I knew that McGee was going to head this thing and spearhead it, I was like, this is going to be awesome. Because Mike brings a party, and that's the team I wanted to be involved with. And so, it was from then on, you started to see like Clint was holding tryouts. AJ De La Garza's team had a training camp in Miami with that team. Teams are actually prepping for this and training for it. And I had no idea. I thought it was just going to be, a rinky-dink soccer tournament. And, oh, yeah, here's some bibs. And then Mike kept calling me like, hey, you got this guy's number? Like, what do you think? Who should we have on the team? And it became this real collaborative effort. Well, we built this team around the guys that we've always wanted to play with and really never had the chance to, right? Guys that you went into the locker room and you said, hey, coach, I think we should get this player. Or, hey, I wanted to be traded to the Galaxy because they've got these guys, right? You always wanted to play with these guys. It was never going to be, in Major League Soccer, never the perfect situation with the perfect team. But if you could build a team around the guys that you wanted to play with, this was it. And so Mike called Nick, called Alan Gordon, called Lenhart, called myself. And then the chain just kept moving. And all of a sudden it was put together with these guys. Mike was actually like, hey, you got some guys up there in Seattle? And I was like, well, Lamar has this Ballard FC team. You might want to talk to Lamar. And so all he did was call Lamar, and Lamar was like, oh, I think you should get this guy, Nick Pereira. And it was like, okay. And I had no idea he was on the team until a day before. That's how late our roster was set. And then we got all these indoor soccer guys. We got all these beach U.S. national team players. And I just remember getting on the plane. Oh, and I was like, hey, you should try this kid Decky. Like we need a young player that's just going to run and work. And Declan was free right now. And so, Kirkland kid, Seattle U product, started off last season amazing with Seattle U. They went to Notre Dame. He scored 2 goals, I think. And then he picked up a groin injury or something. And he was out for pretty much the remainder of the season. So MLS teams were like, no, we're not really interested. So he's trying to get on somewhere. But anyways, we got all these guys together that we really wanted to play with, and Lenhart is like, people hate him,
Right.
and anyone in that room would tell you the same thing. Like, he is the guy that you want on your team and that you want to kill when he's not on your team, right? But he is the glue that kind of like binds everyone together. And from minute one, we got in and everyone's doing the rounds. Hey, what's up? This is my name. This is where I'm from, where I played, and the first thing we did as a team was just sit there and say, Steve was like, I want everyone to say their name, why they're here, and what they would do with $1 million. And so I had never even been in an MLS locker room where the team had vocally set their expectations for what they wanted out of a season.
Sure.
And I was like, wait, what? Like you can do that? I always thought it was just like, okay, there's a coach up front and, he tells kind of the captain what he wants to go on, and then everyone just follows suit. And so this was like new for me. And everyone was like, all right, well, I'm Brad. I'm here to push you harder than you think you're going to be pushed. And I might be yelling at you, but it's because I want to win. And I don't, $1 million, I'm happy to share that with everyone, and whatever you guys want to do.
Chump change for you.
No, not chump change, but I just figured we were going to lose the first 3 games, so I didn't even say what I would do with the money. But from that point on, like, everyone was just bonded, like in the snap of a finger.
Yeah, I could see that being a very useful
what
team
a tool,
building exercise.
Right? And then from then on, we just like kept winning and winning and winning. We were like, okay, we're going to take Ubers 15 minutes to the fields. And Mike was like, oh, this is a disaster. So our little team liaison, Erin, she worked for Nashville for a while, so she knows like player personnel. She got us a party bus, and it had a stripper pole, and we got in. And Drew Connor owns a house club in Chicago, so he's got the playlist, and we're just like dancing and vibing and doing the whole thing the whole time. It was just so fun, dude. Play 2 games a day, and then we were out till 3:00 every morning partying.
There you go. And how did you guys end up doing?
We made the semifinals. We lost to the team that ended up winning the tournament, who were all indoor soccer professionals. And some of those guys actually play in professional 7v7 tournaments in Brazil. They have this Brazilian guy who's like, dude, they were unreal. Like, we're playing 7v7 like you would at training, where tactics are so different. Keep your shape there. You have unlimited subs, right? So some of these guys would come on the field for a minute, and then you'd be looking over your shoulder like, wait, where's my guy? And then a new guy comes on the field, and you got to keep track. And do you man mark? Do you stay with the guy? Like, we had no idea. Even though we had Nick on our team, he's like, this is different than indoor. Even these guys just knew how to play the game. They were so good, and we just didn't stand a chance.
So who ended up being the best player for you?
The best player for us, our goalkeeper was unreal. He just signed with Tacoma Stars now. He came from San Diego, but he was fantastic. Really lights out. Really, really good goalkeeper. He plays for the U.S. Beach national team as well, and now the Tacoma Stars with Nick down there. And offensively, Nick is 6'5", 215, and he just is an immovable object.
He had one of the goals of the tournament, it looked like, too.
And his ability to roll the ball and finish was, unmatched in the tournament, save for the team that won or made the final too.
And so, what did you you said you hadn't played basically at all since you retired. Did this inspire you to like want to play more, or is this like a one and done situation?
No,
for
I
you?
think so. Yeah, certain things happen where a fire gets reignited. I mean, I said in my, we had this huge text thread with all the guys, and my first response was like, I had a lot of resentment when I left the game. I wanted nothing to do with it. That's why I traveled for a year. I watched one game in Montana at a random bar outside of Glacier National Park, East Glacier, and I was like, hey, can you put on soccer? And they kind of stared at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it was Portland versus Seattle in 2018. I think it was an away game at the time. And I sat there and had pizza, and that was the only game I watched. And this just along with coaching, that gives you the joy because you're imparting your knowledge. But to be able to play again with a group of guys, that's what you miss the most anyways.
Sure.
But
Like the
this
camaraderie and stuff.
Yeah, this has no contracts. It's like playing pickup, right? It's like playing pickup. There's no contracts. There were no expectations. No, you got to do this. I played very minimal minutes. I like pulled my quad in literally the first game, and so I was playing with like a taped up quad. I was just there as like a place marker for guys to get rest, and then I'd pop off the field and sit back and just pass the ball back to the goalkeeper. But it was just so fun, and now maybe it ignites something to. I got something to look forward to next year.
Yeah, I was wondering. You look at those rosters, and there's almost every team had some notable players. There were a lot of former MLS players, or maybe even some current MLS players. I don't know if there are any current MLS players, but there was guys that are a lot of notable names, like I said. And I think there was this assumption from the outside that it's like, oh, this Jermaine Jones is going to dominate this thing. Yeah. But of course, the teams that were the best were the teams that had the most active players.
Yeah, for sure. All the guys that played indoor or futsal leagues or played in Brazil, like they completely dominated. Jermaine's a great soccer player and an athlete, but not for that setting. No.
Right.
I mean, they had.
And it's such a different game. I mean, it is a fundamentally different game.
Yeah. It's not based on power and strength.
Right.
It is technical and tactical awareness. And for someone that's used to, you rarely head the ball. The ball's always at your feet. You're only playing 2-3 minute shifts. It's just so different. It feels like more of a team sport than anything, and a bit more of a chess match in that regard. You have to be really concise with your passes because at any point, one person is a touch away and off they go to goal, like real quick, right? So in that respect, like they had Eddie Johnson, they had Clyde Sims, they had Daniel Hernandez, guys who I had battled with back in the day.
Yeah.
And they had Wando too, obviously, who ended up scoring 2 goals in a game, and then Luis Robles took a header to the eyeball, and so
he was playing for the pretty mean Shiner for the games I saw.
It was terrible, and so Wando went into goal and played keeper, had a couple saves, and then scored a penalty kick in that game too for them. It was just hodgepodge, dude. But what I was told is that the team that made the final, for the Canadian team, they paid a loan fee for a Brazilian guy. They paid him like $30,000 to play in the tournament. If they had won, he wasn't going to get any of the winnings though.
Oh, okay.
So these teams are like really going after it, right? But if you get enough sponsors, like why not? They're paying for sponsorships on the jerseys. We had O'Neal.
Yeah.
We customize every jersey. So if anyone ever wants to be a sponsor, like we're open to it because the more fun that we can have, like dude, it was so fun.
So it made me sort of think of these days that you like. Had you played with anyone on your team? Had you played with at any level before?
I had played with Mike in a national team camp, McGee. I had played with Lenhart, obviously in Columbus.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, some of these, I played against Nick in college because he was at Santa Barbara when I was at Irvine. He's 2 years younger than me. But other than that, no. These are just guys you had heard of that were kind of journeymen also throughout the league. I never got to play with Alan Gordon. Obviously, I played with Nick Raimondo with the national team, but no, not in a real team setting. So it was just cool to be with these guys in the same space and kind of occupy the mindset that we've always shared, but could never do it on the same team.
The reason I ask is because you played for a pretty famous PDL team. It was you call Ventura Blue Star? What was the name of
Orange
it?
County Blue Stars.
Orange County Blue Star. Okay, and that had you look at the roster of teammates that you had, and it's like a who's who of like MLS stars during your era. Do you keep in touch with those guys? And is that I don't know. That seems like it would be a fun team to put together.
Yeah, look, I tried. It was here's Kenny Cooper FaceTiming me right now. He was there too and scored a banger of a goal against West Ham United. Took off his shirt and celebrated. So. Yeah, on that team, I tried to get Sasha to play, but he's doing Apple TVs. Like I can't get a weekend away. Benny Failhaber's coaching Sporting Kansas City 2, so I couldn't get him. Tyson Walls, the general manager of the youth program, the academy program in Austin, he can't check out. Some of these guys, and then a lot of them had to retire because of concussions. So Sam Cronin was going to be on the team, but couldn't play because of his concussions. Kalen Carr. Even Kyle Martino was there and just couldn't do the business. But I text Robbie Rogers. He's like, I can't get away for 4 days to go to go anywhere. And I was like, all right. So we tried We tried, and fucking Kai Kamara is still playing.
Right.
Like, that's crazy to me.
That
dude
is-
and we played together for Blue Star, and he's still scoring goals.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be surreal to see, to just see what
unreal.
he's doing. Right?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, he is. Why wouldn't in the right setting? Why wouldn't you sign him?
Right.
I mean, Ezra. That's Ezra's son. Back in Columbus, we all played together, and that's why he got brought to Chicago. But
okay.
I think, yeah, his ability to continuously perform is actually remarkable. It's remarkable. I mean, he's not putting up Wando numbers, but man, what is he, 4th on the scoring list now?
He's definitely putting up
Right below Donovan. Like,
No, I think he might even be second.
second or third. Yeah,
I mean, he's close to. I think he's close to passing Donovan.
Yeah, which is insane, right?
Right.
When you think about one of the greatest. So,
Yeah.
But those guys that were on Orange County Blue Star, I mean, a lot of guys that had 10, 15-year careers, and that was kind of the golden age for college kids, like good
Right.
college kids, right on the cusp of you're still
before-
good enough to
right.
play college. There's no academies.
Right.
That was
That
that
last
era.
era of pre-academy sort
Exactly.
of.
That was it.
Talent.
Yeah, that was it. So that was cool. It was so fun, dude.
So shifting gears a bit, the Sounders are you're still obviously very involved in the Sounders. You, like we alluded to at the beginning, you wear a lot of hats within this organization. How has it been making that shift, and what do you like? How does it change your perspective on the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. And Schmetz has been great because, for us former guys, like we can go into the locker room right after the game. We can come to practice and hang out and go to every single training session. I got to take, my high school boys to a training session, and he's talking to every single player. And, he brings us right on the field, grass level, for these guys to watch, like in person. He really understands what it is to have culture and to build that, which is super important. And that's been probably the coolest part, is because I thought when I left, it would be a complete disengagement from the locker room, because that's the thing I miss the most. But he's like, hey, come in, like do what you need to do. And every time I go in, everyone is like stoked to see guys in the locker room. Zach Awani won't do it. He doesn't want to be a part of that. He won't travel on
He
the
still wants
team.
to play, I think.
Well, yeah, seriously. But he won't travel on the team flight. Like, he doesn't
Oh,
want to
really?
be in he just doesn't want to be a distraction. But I think at the end of the day, these guys want to see you.
Yeah.
Like, they want to talk. They want to know what you're doing. Like,
Well, it's what makes it feel like a
community.
club, right?
Exactly. It's a club. You have to have these guys come back. And even after the game, I called with Marcus. This is probably like 4 weeks ago now. We went downstairs into the locker room. They got food set up in there now, which we never had as us being players here.
Right.
And good food too. And so everyone's there having a bite to eat. And I forget who was on the staff. They were like, who is that guy? And I was like, well, it's one of the greatest American goalkeepers to ever play. It's just, but you have to have those guys around because it builds community, like you said, and it's so vitally important. But yeah, I wear a lot of hats, and but I enjoy it. Like, I have great bosses in quotes. Like Ashley Fosberg, head of Rave Foundation, is my boss, and she's the raddest chick. And then Keely is my boss on the production side, and she's the raddest chick too. If I'm like, hey, I got this thing going on, or I'm going to check out for 4 or 5 days, hey, go do your thing. So it's kind of the dream role for me. And then I also get to work at Seattle Academy and just coach the soccer teams there. And Craig Tomlinson, former player of the Sounders for a decade. USL days. He's the head coach of both the boys and the girls, and we've made the third place game. We got third place for the girls in the fall, and then we just won a state championship with the boys. So building something cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And just trying to do what we did as Sounders and impart some knowledge on these kids too. So it's a good gig right now.
It does feel like that's sort of what makes the Sounders really differentiated from virtually any other North American team, that it's not just the first team, it's not just Seattle Sounders MLS era, but it's like you go anywhere into the soccer space in the greater Puget Sound area and you're going to find former Sounders almost no matter where you look.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the head coach of Defiance right now.
Right.
I mean, he's, doing a fantastic job in developing what it means to be a Sounder. And now when these guys, young kids, 16, 17 years old, they already know the expectation of coming into the team because of these legends and greats that have lived and breathed it. Grant Clark's still the administrator. Vince is still here as an administrator. Went to the first game in 1974. I think these guys bleed Sounders.
Right.
You don't see that at other clubs. You don't see it in Vancouver, even, which has been around like just as long, right? And even I don't think in Portland with that front office either.
No, you don't.
And so it really is special. And Adrian is a really smart person when it comes to keeping a culture together. Can we do a better job? Absolutely. San Jose has like an alumni association where they fly guys out for a special occasion. Like, we don't do that. These are all things that we can still learn from clubs that are trying to build it. I think we've been blessed with just, the community's here. It's great. Let's keep them together.
Right.
That's not good enough at the end of the day, but resources are resources. And, most of it gets poured into, the first team and the academy at that point.
What have you learned sort of about the stuff that goes into building a club outside of, like we said, the performance on the first team?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing for me is just the sheer size of the club. One of our downfalls, and just because we didn't have the space to do it, was we were always separated from the front office, right? They're in Pioneer Square and the Sounders are here. So there was this real unspoken division that when you went to an appearance or you went to a club event, you had no idea who anyone was because you get no interaction with them on a daily basis. It's no one's fault, but the priority is the team, right? That's why we sell tickets, is to make money so that we can go out and buy players. And corporate sponsors, like, that's why we sell sponsorships, is so we can buy players and have a better product on the field. Like, it all gets funneled there, in my opinion. And so really now, just to be in the office on a day-to-day basis, that's a loose term because I started when COVID started. But to see the operations side is it's a machine. And it's been really interesting to see how much, the vast majority of the, ticket sales, corporate sponsors, like, they love soccer and they love Sounders and they love working for a sports team. And I think when we get into Longacres and you can see them on a day-to-day basis and have a sit down and say, okay, how can we help you? How can you help us? It's going to elevate the club to the next level. Especially when you're selling sponsorships too. You have these touch points with players. You get to know them on a more personal level, and that's something we haven't had in the past. But the whole, just the way the operation is actually mind blowing, and it's been really cool to kind of be a part of in certain instances.
And all that said, the first team performance is still the thing that keeps us paying attention, that keeps us talking, that keeps us. What have you made of this season, which started off gangbusters and has sort of hit this weird lull?
Yeah, a little bit of a lull. I was just in the locker room right now, and the attitude is positive. I've been in locker rooms many times where you haven't won in, a month and a half, and it's like everyone wants to kill each other. I don't know what it's like on the field in training, but everyone in the locker room was happy. Spirits seemed high. Talking with the trainers, they said, "No, we're going to be good." I talked to Hébert, and he's like, "Look, we haven't been able to field a first choice lineup this year." And he said, when we do that, if we can stay healthy and do that, we're a really good team. So it's not lost on these guys that there's been challenges. The team did have a faster start and a bit of a boost because they had the Club World Cup, and I think
they get felt like a little head start.
They entered the season a little bit hotter and a bit more organized than other teams, and that's what set them apart. And now that other teams are getting settled in and how they want to play, the Sounders with injuries, with absences, have they been getting a little bit unlucky? Yes, but what is it? 10 shutouts, 9 shutouts?
10 shutouts, yeah.
So half the games have been shutouts for the Sounders. If you're saying half the season we're going to get shutouts and we're still going to be, wondering what's going on with the team, so it certainly isn't defensively.
Right.
It's now putting the ball in the back.
It's not effort.
And it's not effort. Like, you can't watch there's been a couple games where you're like, guys, what are you doing? Right. And that's going to happen in a season. We've done that before. We've had to give fans our money back because we played like shit against the Galaxy at home. Like, I get it. They're going to have those in a season, but you can't sit here and say that this team hasn't poured effort into pretty much every game.
Yeah.
So now what you're talking about is just a missing link of finishing your chances. LA game, I was there calling it with Danny. A lapse in the first 60 seconds. And then, we have Leo has 8, 9 crosses in that game, like in good positions. Raul, 2 good chances, not great chances. So it's close.
Yeah.
I told Raul he better score, and he was like, okay. Right. And so it's not lost on them. Like, this is what we're doing. And of course, we want to see results. We want to see Nico hold his position more on the right. We want to see Leo get more good quality chances by himself on goal, and we want to see Raul finish, and we want to see Rusnak play key passes in the final third. And right now, it's not happening, but I think it's really close to seeing what this team could potentially be. But is this the last year? I don't know for some of those guys, because
it does feel like we're getting close to a transition
close
period.
To a transition for sure, and those guys have to smell it, because if you can stay here for as long as you want. Schmetz will have you here if you're going to put in the work and you're going to provide, but you're going to need to accept a new role, because that's just the way that MLS is going, right? Yeah. That's LAFC is the team now that's buying players, selling them within a year or two, and you just didn't see that in even 5-6 years ago in Major League Soccer, and that's what this league is becoming.
Yeah, has it been a strange transition for you to go from being the guy who is being talked about to the guy who has to talk about the other players?
No, not for me. I don't think I was ever even aware of that. I think my role with the team, as I reflect, 5 years removed, is I was just trying to do everything I could for the team. And this league has even changed in 5 years. When I talked to Roldan, he's like, we'll sit and watch a game together when he had his concussions. And he's like, dude, you won't believe, like, even the level since I've left the game has just dramatically increased. Trainings are harder. Guys are just fucking better. Mm-hmm. And we don't really see that on a day-to-day basis watching this club, but the guys can sense it and feel it in the locker room, and the guys that are on the field consistently. And that's why you don't see like too many shitty teams in the past couple years. Teams have bad runs, but the quality of players is still there.
We don't see a lot of bad rosters that are just like bad.
Right. Teams are spending and they're getting good players. And then ultimately sometimes it's down to coaching.
Right.
And if that player is motivated or not. But I've had a really good time talking about the team. Like I said, Schmetz gives me the opportunity to go in there and really get a pulse. I still have relationships with guys and they'll open up. And I'm not here to like spill beans. I want to make sure that sometimes they don't get the opportunity to say what they want to say too. So I know what they're going through. I can see it and sense it by watching it. And so now I get to actually just talk on behalf of the team, because it can't all be roses all the time.
Yeah.
It has to be criticism, because everyone experiences it, whether it's from a pundit or me. I'd rather hear it from, someone like myself, because that's what I did in the locker room too. I wasn't like, oh, this is great, guys. Most of the time I was like, get your head out of your ass. Like, let's go. I'm not good enough. You're not good enough. What are we going to do to fix it?
Do you get the sense that there's that leadership in the current locker room?
Yeah. And this, I don't want to like be kitschy here, but I read a book recently, and it was the David Goggins new book. And that dude's just I just thought he was like an Instagram guy. I didn't know his story too much, but I read his book, and he's like this gnarly Navy SEAL dude that went from like a big fat dude and then he got cut, and he was just a SEAL and a fire jumper, all this stuff, massive surgeries. And in the book, and I had criticisms over the guys because I never heard anyone really in the press saying like, this isn't good enough. Like, this guy's not doing right. And during my time, I called out guys, but I think I was more of a vocal leader on the field and in practice. And for me, I didn't have that sense. I didn't know if it was Steph or Jordan or Christian or Nico. But in that book, he was just like, sometimes it's the silent motherfucker that does his work and gets the job done, and that's the one that people follow. And so I think that that's more of the case with this current group, is like Nico leads by example. Raul, when he's scoring, leads by example. He's not going to be the guy that's like on the field, rah. Steph leads by example. He's a goalkeeper, right? But he's been here a long time, and he leads by example as being the guy who's been incredibly fit, incredibly durable, and has given everything he has for this club. So my thought has shifted on that even in the past like couple months, and really taking a step back and understanding that people lead in different ways. And that's more of Schmetz's leadership style too. He's not the guy that's like going to give a huge motivational speech before every game, and he'll get guys fired up, but he's more lead by example. Like, you're here for a reason. I'm giving you the keys to the car. So I do think we have it. But if we're looking for someone, and from an outsider's perspective, that's going to be, screaming and yelling, I think JP's kind of coming into his own in that respect on the field. The longer that he's here, he's frustrated. talking with him right now. He's like, well, what's up, man? He's like, we just have to work. So they have it. It's just a different leadership than maybe Ozzy. A little different than Clint when he wore the armband. A little different from Gonzo when he wore the armband. He was the rah guy that's going to get in everyone's face, and it's just different.
Do you get the sense that one of the things that Schmetzer talked about last year was he felt like there needed to be more internal competition for minutes, for spots, for whatever. Do you feel like that's happening this year? I mean, within the limitation of there being a lot of injuries, obviously.
I don't know. It's hard because whether you want to go back to my days when I first came in, where you had a development team also, so we had like 30 something guys at every practice. And there was competition there. We were all training together and fighting. But some of us knew that we were never going to play, no matter how good we played. And I still think that that's the case with teams. It's really hard to have, 5-6 guys on the bench who are, 20 years and younger and expect them to really make meaningful impacts. And none of those guys are attacking players except for Tevez.
Right.
That's a little bit different than I think other MLS teams. I think other MLS teams have a little bit of a different, and maybe that's just the like we say, the season that academies go through. Some are going to produce 3 or 4 good strikers. Some of them are going to produce a couple number 6s. And we've got 3 or 4 6s that can play
Right.
there. We've got a couple right backs. We don't have that like number 9 that has been developed here, or a pure out and out winger.
Right.
And so
And
I
certainly
think,
not a number 10 type.
right. And so it's different when you look at, Luna for Real Salt Lake. You look at, the kid that came on for LAFC, that right winger who's left footed, that's going to take on guys. And he's a big boy, a Cowell at San Jose. So the Wolf brothers, like, Josh's kids.
Right.
So I think it's just a different time for the Sounders, and that can kind of be constraints on how you make subs and maybe how the course of a season might go. Schmetz is probably thinking, man, if I had 2 more young attacking players, we might be better off. Then I don't have to feel like I have to trade a guy to open up a roster spot and get allocation money and go find a player overseas who's going to take time to develop at mid-season, and is it the right fit? There's a lot that goes into it that I'm learning about now.
Do you? So I think you have been open about this. You were up for one of the Apple broadcaster spots. You've done some radio this year. Is that part of the game that you want to pursue? And I don't know, what other kind of stuff are you hoping to get? Or are you just kind of like sampling everything?
Well, yeah, I was sampling everything so COVID hit. I had signed with Fox to do games, and I took the job with the Sounders at the same time. And they were like, "Cool, go down, call the game. Be an ambassador for us. Spread the word of the Sounders." COVID hit, and they only did local. It was like Keith and all the guys that lived in LA.
Right.
So no one could travel.
Sure.
So that kind of got pushed to the wayside, but then I jumped into pre-halftime with the guys here, and that was fun for me, the pre and halftime. And then radio, I don't know if I'm good at doing in-game really. I think I'm probably better suited as more of an analyst at pre-halftime and post. That it is really hard to do what those guys do. It takes a lot of reps and consistency. And for me, I've done 2 games this year because Steve got sick on one for the half. I only did the second half, and then at LAFC, which is great fun. I feel a bit more comfortable talking off the cuff versus maybe watching the game at this point, and that's Steve's job. And so Apple is to the wayside. They needed someone every weekend, and I couldn't commit to that.
Yeah.
So that's not. I really enjoy just talking about the game in a more casual setting. And radio for pre, half, and post is like the most casual as it gets.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. There are definitely a few guys that are doing Apple right now who, if you hear them do non-game calling, they're like, "Oh, these guys are great."
Right.
But it's a touch. You see what a different game it is when you're calling it live. It is really an acquired skill that is all about reps. It's not like it's very hard to walk into that and be good at it.
No, it's impossible. Although Danny Jackson has been pretty spot on for a guy who kind of walked into a play-by-play.
That's true. I mean, you're right. No, he has been
incredible.
I would agree with
And
that.
the Sounders are very lucky to have him. Obviously, a former player too.
I was pretty skeptical that how good he'd be, and he's been much better than I expected.
Yeah, I think for him walking into that and from day one, like I don't think we could have asked for anyone better what we need right now. He's been fantastic and the consummate professional. And even though we're doing radio, he's suited, and it's that guy.
Yeah,
that's how he operates. But yeah, it's incredibly difficult. It is a reps based position for sure. It's a lot of muscle memory that you don't normally use. It's can you watch it? The play ends, talk about it. Oh, the play's starting again. Stop. Go back to your point, but also want to. It's tough.
No, it is. It's very tough. And radio is its own beast, because you're having to paint this picture for your listeners that they don't have the benefit
Silence.
of watching it.
Yeah, sometimes it's better when Twellman doesn't talk and those guys, and you just kind of watch the game for even 3 minutes. Just watch. You can't do that with radio.
No,
you have to you have to talk about every single play.
Right. Well, thank you again for doing this, Brad. I'm Jeremiah Shan. This is No Sadiatis, and we will catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one.